Good economic data supports the Democrats and President Biden's push for legislation that would build back better. Let's talk about it in today's video. Hi, I'm Mike Greiner. I'm a lifelong Democratic activist who's concerned about the direction our country is taking. If you share my concerns, maybe you could like this video and subscribe to this channel. Maybe even click that little bell that will notify you when I post something new. So one of the big claims of moderates and those opposed to the administration and the Democrats' efforts to invest in our economy has been that it will drive up inflation. And they point to recent economic news to support that claim. Well, just the other day, the Labor Department announced its latest inflation figures, and the news is good. Inflation, which had been increasing at a slightly shocking rate, has slowed dramatically over the last month. Especially when we look at core inflation, which strips out food and fuel prices, which are very volatile for obvious reasons. The index picked up only 0.1% last month, which is a 4% increase over the last year. That's a substantial drop from the inflation we've been seeing in the months leading up to it. Now, as I pointed out in another video, and of course I'll post a link to it up above, I've long been a believer that this inflation that we've been dealing with is really temporary. That it's driven by price increases on just a few things that were dramatically impacted by the COVID pandemic and the associated economic slowdown. This new data clearly indicates that inflation is slowing and really supports the argument that this inflation is really passing, something that many Democrats, including myself, Robert Reich, and Paul Krugman have been arguing, as well as economists in the White House. And what's more is it pretty much takes away the argument that some have been using that we shouldn't invest the money in infrastructure and other priorities that the Democrats have been seeking to fund, both through the bipartisan infrastructure bill and through the reconciliation package that's coming up soon. The second data point that has really been supportive of the president's agenda has to do with poverty. Well, as a result of the pandemic and the associated economic crisis, you would have expected poverty to rise dramatically. That's what typically happens when you have recessions. Certainly it rose dramatically during the 2008 to 2009 recession and seemed to be on an uptick again. But amazingly, as a result of the government intervention, things like the expanded unemployment benefits and the payments to families with dependent children and the direct payments to all taxpayers, the poverty rate has actually gone down. This is proof, by the way, that poverty is a policy choice that can be addressed by government interventions. If we want people to be able to live comfortable lives and not be worried about poverty, there is something we can do about it. All this argues for the Build Back Better Act, which is currently making its way through Congress. Democrats are negotiating both what this package is going to include as well as how it's going to be funded. Now remember, the plan is to have this act pass Congress just with Democratic votes. But because of the fact that it will have a substantial budget impact and it will be fully funded, it could pass by way of budget reconciliation, which will not require a single Republican to support it, but will require all the Democrats to stick together on it. In addition to strong infrastructure investment and investments to address climate change, this would also include free community college and free pre-K, as well as investments in HBCUs and potentially paid leave for families. Now, obviously, all these things cost money, and the package that the president had proposed that passed a framework that passed both the Senate and the House has a price tag of about $3.5 trillion over the next 10 years. Now, some moderate senators have balked at the price tag, including Senator Manchin, who said he's not going to support something at $3.5 trillion, even though he voted for the budget resolution when it was going through the Senate. So the question is, what is the correct price? I mean, is it $3.5 trillion, $3.4 trillion, $3.3 trillion? Well, the House has given us an indication of what that correct price is, and it's $2.9 trillion. The Democrats on the House Committee on Ways and Means have proposed a package that includes $2.9 trillion in new revenue, and I'm guessing that figure was not come up with in a vacuum. Now, I must say, I'm disappointed about some of the things that were not included in this package. For example, it does not include a wealth tax. It does not include higher taxes on stock buybacks or on inheritances, things that basically are entirely enjoyed by the extremely wealthy. Instead, this package focuses almost entirely on income taxes, the thing that affects Americans most broadly, but also means that extreme wealth that is not earned ends up being untaxed. Nevertheless, this bill does increase taxes on the very wealthy, pretty dramatically actually, as well as a big increase on corporate taxes, including an especially large surtax on corporations that have more than $5 million in profits. In that way, they're able to protect small business people who are basically employing people with most of their income. It's not perfect, but it would certainly make a big step in the right direction of addressing the incredible level of inequality in this country, and certainly would do a lot to shift some wealth from the very wealthy to everybody else who's working and struggling. As a result of that, I applaud the Democrats for moving forward on this package and look forward to it passing. At the same time, I also hope progressives like Elizabeth Warren and Ron Wyden and Sherrod Brown will keep pushing for things like a wealth tax and a tax on stock buybacks and taxes on inheritances, which will help address the incredible wealth that has been built up by the super rich in this country. Well, if you agree with me or disagree with me, I'd love to hear your comments down below. And if you give me a like and subscribe to this channel, that'd be a huge help. I'll see you in the next video. In the meantime, let's hope for continued progress. Thank you.